Production-linked incentive or PLI schemes in sectors that have seen little progress could reportedly see a course correction going ahead. On June 13th, government officials said that the centre would weigh in on the matter, and a call on what needs to be done is likely to be taken by the end of FY24. So, let's look at which sectors need the most attention. According to data collated by the Department for Promotion of Industry and Internal Trade, or DPIIT, out of the 14 sectors under the scheme, incentives have been given to PLI beneficiaries in 8, including mobile manufacturing, IT hardware, medical devices, telecommunications, and drones. However, progress has been sluggish in the remaining 6, which are the steel, textile, battery, white goods, solar photovoltaic, and automotive sectors. Beneficiaries from these sectors are yet to receive incentives. We also need to look at what the numbers tell us. Claims under PLI stood at 3,420 crore rupees in FY23, of which the government paid 2,874 crore rupees to beneficiaries. In essence, 1.4% of the 1.97 trillion rupees allocated for 5 years towards the scheme has been paid by the government as incentives. PLI schemes were first introduced in March 2020 and targeted 3 specific industries. Government officials point out that PLI schemes for separate sectors have started at different times and are progressing at different speeds. Incentive payouts are expected to peak only in the second and the third year for each scheme. As production increases, the support given by government is also likely to increase. In fact, the disbursement of incentives is expected to be about 13,000 crore rupees in this fiscal. Against this backdrop, DPIIT Additional Secretary Rajiv Singh Thakur has said that to utilize the 1.97 trillion rupees earmarked, the current fiscal year and the next will be crucial. This is not to say that the PLI concept has not had its successes, with Made in India iPhones being the most conspicuous example. Coming back to the possible tweaks in the scheme, DPIIT Secretary Rajesh Kumar Singh has said that the government will have to look at course correction in cases where disbursements are low and relaxations will be needed in case firms are not able to meet the threshold. On June 27th, there will be a review meeting with stakeholders, which will focus on the 6 sectors where the scheme has been sluggish. But before we get to what course correction may be needed, we need to understand why some of the PLI schemes have seen progress.
All the PLIs that concern the electronic sector, including the white goods sector, we found that there are actually 16 variations of the PLI available. And across these 16, you will see that if you look at 2 parameters, the investment to the turnover ratio varies from 6 times to 25 times. So in a mobile phone, if you put in 1,000 crores, you can get a turnover of 25,000 crores. In an IT hardware, it's from 100 crores to 600 crores, right? If you look at the same figure from a investment to the PLI incentive ratio. So if I put in 1,000 crores, how much do I get back from the government? You'll be surprised that in some areas it's as high as 25 times. In the new PLI for IT, it's as high as 20 times. But on an average, or not on an average, but the rest of them are all about 6 times. So what is happening is PLIs have worked very well wherever the investment required is not so high, and the turnover to investment ratios are very favorable.
Against this backdrop, what specific course corrections do the PLI schemes need to improve the outcome?
If I were to now look at what can be done, move from assembly to manufacturing. What does this mean? This means that the investment levels are going to be higher compared to the turnover, and hence the incentives need to be much higher as a percentage. The second bit is that deep down manufacturing is not done by very large companies. It is normally done all over the world by SMEs. The current PLIs have, if I have one criticism for them, they ignored the SMEs completely. So fair enough, as phase 1, you said, let's do the large assemblers first, large companies. Now as phase 2, I think we have to look at how can we get the SMEs involved in this whole process. So the thresholds for investment will be low. However, given the nature of their business, the investment to turnover ratios will still be low, which means that the incentive has to be more than the 3, 4, 5% that we are getting at the moment. Second part is that obviously we cannot have it a very high incentive. So, and components or deep down manufacturing does not give you money within 3, 4, 5 years. That happens in assemblies. So if you want serious manufacturing to happen, your gestation periods are longer. So instead of a 4 or 5 year policy, give a 7, 8, 9 year policy. Third, value addition can happen through technology. So we need to have either design or a technology-led incentive.
So if you ask me, in textiles, we struggle with basic competitiveness issues. In steel, we have a very successful steel industry, which is exporting in any case around the world. And maybe the gestation period is longer in terms of investments. So perhaps we just have to wait a bit. In solar and photovoltaics, it's a much tougher sector. There are huge entry barriers. China is way ahead of everyone else in the world, not just India, but way ahead of everyone else in the world. To really make a play there is going to take a lot of effort and work, and probably needs a lot of close interaction between government and the particular industry sector. So hopefully those approaches and way forward will emerge from the discussion that the government has together with the specific industry sector. I think the answer will be different for the different sectors. If you ask me, one of the key concerns I have about the PLI scheme is I'm not sure it has enough of focus on technology, and that it's driving enough investments in technology by firms in the here and now, so that when the PLI scheme goes away, when the subsidy goes away, the firms can compete in the long run.
More clarity is required on the incentives that firms are supposed to receive, and there should be no difference in understanding between the government and manufacturers. Documentation issues also need to be ironed out. Ultimately, experts say the peculiar requirements of different sectors need to be understood for the PLI scheme to achieve its full potential.
If you like this video, share it and subscribe to Business Standard. For more news, views and insights, log on to www.business-standard.com. Do also follow us on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Telegram and LinkedIn.
He's moving from employee to employer. Business Standard.